that not everything on internet is elevating to the mind. And I hope you will choose what you view carefully. One day we must deal with this, because if some children playing with internet see some of the appalling matter that is put across, it could damage their minds forever. We in Britain are one up on you because, in fact, we have an Obscene Publications Act which enables us to block out material that would really deprave minds. You don't. I think you'll have to find another way of doing it. You really must protect the children and the innocent. Now, but if you plan too rigidly your life, you will miss seeing the opportunities. Sometimes when they come along, you wonder whether to take the safe course or the risky one, which would bring more satisfaction if you succeed. Have a go if you can. It may or may not work, but don't be put off by failure. Such things are sometimes part of finding the right way to the right answer. Well, I was always fascinated by the approach of the great Thomas Edison, the great scientist of your country, the great technologist, whose life is the stuff the American dream is made of. He arrived in New York penniless, determined to make a living as an inventor. He invented the phonograph leading to the gramophone, the electric light bulb, the microphone, storage batteries. Over 1,000 things were patented in his name. When in the process of experiment, his laboratories blew up and the fires raged, he announced, "We're rebuilding." He went on to say, "You can always make capital out of disaster. Anybody know where we can get some money?" He rebuilt and went on to the great inventions that I have told you about. An unusual story, not one which most of us could emulate. He was a man who followed his instinct. He was, in fact, in spite of all those inventions, he was, in fact, very deaf. And when asked why he had never invented a hearing aid, gave a reason of which all politicians should take heed. He said, "How much have you heard in the last 24 hours that you couldn't do without?" I know exactly what he meant, because we've just had an election. President Sullivan, Rector and the Board of Visitors, members of faculty, honorary graduates, new graduates and parents, and all other ladies and gentlemen. This is a great day for us all, graduates, faculty, and parents, as we recognize and praise unstintingly your achievements. Whatever your background, the degrees you have won could only have been attained by your own effort, concentration, and determination. And the most valuable things in life are those which no one else can give you. And I know that all parents will say today that whatever sacrifices they had to make, it was all worth it to see sons and daughters becoming graduates of this great college. For me, my friends, it is an awesome honor to be asked to give this address, especially in view of some of the previous speakers on a similar occasion. President Bush, James Baker, George Will, I know them all. But it's also, and I've heard them all. also a joy because of the unbreakable bonds of William and Mary College with my country. And because this college cannot lose its habit of producing and attracting great leaders whose faith in the rightness of their cause created America, changed the world, and brought new hope to peoples who have never known freedom and justice. My friends, all beginnings are hopeful. I think back today to what my own principal at Somerville College, Oxford, said to us on a similar, though not identical, occasion. It was just after the end of World War II, and she was addressing us in the chapel. And she said this, and I cannot improve upon it, and thank goodness I took it down. If you have done your work thoroughly, you will have learned to set before you a standard of accuracy in whatever you do, to respect truth above everything, and be contented with nothing less. You will have learned to look for the principles that underlie the facts. You will have learned to use your imagination in a disciplined way, as well as your reason. You have to work your way inside your subject and not think that you can learn it from the outside. This needs a single-minded and sustained concentration. Wise words. We couldn't always live up to them, but we can always return to them for inspiration. All those things will now be familiar to you as you embark upon the next stage in life. So we have to put our duties clearly and succinctly, and Theodore Roosevelt did. He's a great president of mine. He was president, as you know, just at the turn of the century. And he said, the first requisite of a good citizen is that he should be able and willing to pull his weight. Now, we have an interpretation act which says that where he occurs in a statute, he should be taken to embrace she. Their draftsmen put things very nicely in those days. Now, while here, your activities have not been confined to your own subjects, nor should they be. While those subjects are the center of one's life in university, they are not the boundary. Music, and we heard that wonderful anthem so beautifully rendered by the choir. Music, debate, sport, art, international affairs, literature, even politics, all are part of what we would call the life of a cultivated or cultured person, and they add immeasurably to our enjoyment. Education, as I was always told at university, is wider than learning. All of those present today applaud your initiative in recreating or renewing the centuries-old tradition of William and Mary, the honor system, the essence of which is individual responsibility in matters involving the student's honor. Your splendid efforts in this respect tell us far more about this generation of undergraduates than the system itself. They tell us that to you, values matter most, both here in the College of William and Mary and in life outside. We need to be able to rely on the integrity of our fellow citizens. Values, my friends, are never new. They are the legacy of faith and civilization. They bring order and peace to our lives, as the founding fathers knew well. Perhaps Shakespeare put it best of all. The purest treasure mortal times afford is spotless reputation. Mine honor is my life. Both grow in one. Take honor from me, and my life is done. Can I also congratulate you on the years of hard work by students and staff, which have resulted in the completion of the cable network, so that you now have access to both the worldwide internet, web, and cable TV in your dormitory rooms. I've been instructed very well about all this. For you, this will be highly beneficial. But my friends, I hope you will recall that not everything on internet is elevating to the mind. And I hope you will choose what you view carefully. One day we must deal with this, because if some children playing with internet see some of the appalling matter that is put across, it could damage their minds forever. We in Britain are one up on you because, in fact, we have an Obscene Publications Act which enables us to block out material that would really deprave minds. You don't. I think you'll have to find another way of doing it. You really must protect the children and the innocent. Now, inevitably, you'll wonder what life holds for you. Knowing what you'd like to do is one thing. Finding the job that enables you to do it is another. I've always found that you can't plan life. On one occasion at university, we were discussing at Oxford what we were going to do. One of my fellow undergraduates, a man I hasten to say, said, "Oh, I'm going to be Prime Minister." He was never heard of again. For me, it was not even possible to contemplate being a member of Parliament, because they weren't paid in those days. So scientific research looked as if it would be my future. Because I was fascinated eventually, not only by the laws of nature, which are immutable, but also by the laws of justice, which embody fundamental principles which are themselves changeless, but whose application changes with circumstances. If you also feel such an intellectual attraction to another subject, you must follow it. And so I studied and qualified in law in my spare time. After all, the rule of law is what makes freedom work. The rule of law is different, of course, from the rule of lawyers. Then another opportunity arose. I was able to become a political candidate, and I promptly prophesied I could never even see the time when a woman would be a cabinet minister, let alone prime minister. That was one prophecy I got wrong. But if you plan too rigidly your life, you will miss seeing the opportunities. Sometimes when they come along, you wonder whether to take the safe course or the risky one, which would bring more satisfaction if you succeed. Have a go if you can. It may or may not work. But don't be put off by failure. Such things are sometimes part of finding the right way to the right answer. While it may be an unusual case as a scientist, I was always fascinated by the approach of the great Thomas Edison, the great scientist of your country, the great technologist, whose life is the stuff the American dream is made of. He arrived in New York penniless, determined to make a living as an inventor. He invented the phonograph leading to the gramophone, the electric light bulb, the microphone, storage batteries. Over 1,000 things were patented in his name. When in the process of experiment, his laboratories blew up and the fires raged, he announced, "We're rebuilding." He went on to say, "You can always make capital out of disaster. Anybody know where we can get some money?" He rebuilt and went on to the great inventions that I have told you about. An unusual story, not one which most of us could emulate. He was a man who followed his instinct. He was, in fact, in spite of all those inventions, he was, in fact, very deaf. And when asked why he had never invented a hearing aid, gave a reason of which all politicians should take heed. He said, "How much have you heard in the last 24 hours that you couldn't do without?" I know exactly what he meant because we've just had an election. But the lives of many great men and women who achieve great things, and we give honors to 3 honorary graduates today, always remind me of the words of Longfellow. The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upwards in the night. The film star Betty Davis always had a special approach. I must quote a woman as well as a man, as she was an unusual actress. Her advice could be more widely adopted. This, she said, became a credo of mine. Attempt the impossible. It improves your work. And I've always said since then, politics is the art of making the impossible happen. Somehow I think Ron Reagan, who was president when I was prime minister, had the same approach. In our times, the times of the great battles between tyranny and freedom, there have been so many seemingly ordinary citizens, in inverted commas, or foot soldiers, who have exhibited courage to an unusual degree. And we should remember them. Mr. Wang and Mr. Wei in China used what they regarded as their human right to freedom of speech. They were both put inside in prison for 14 years. This kind of courage is very special, and we should always remember it. It's that kind of courage which is extending freedom all over the world. When you ask some of them, they're called dissidents, strangely enough, why they did it, they say this: we know we're doing the right thing in fighting for democracy and human rights. And we can only hope we should say the same courage, have the same courage, if the challenge ever came to us. My friends, we don't sufficiently appreciate our good fortune. Just think how many people the world over would love to change places with all of us here. My friends, I believe there are 4 cornerstones to life upon which you can build the architecture of your dreams. The first cornerstone, home and family, the place from which we learn our values, receive affection and understanding, through which we transmit values to successive generations, and to which, no matter what happens, we can always return and find a welcome. Whatever would have happened to the prodigal son if he'd no family to return to? The second cornerstone is education, in the widest sense of the term. The chapters of the past are a book of lessons for the future. The training, imagination, and inspiration of the mind, perhaps the most deeply exciting things in life, will bring the solutions to old and new problems and enlarge our understanding. And the third cornerstone, home and family, education, let's look to the other end of the oblong, the world of work, the work you choose, not only a necessity, it also has a wider purpose. In your country and mine, it doesn't stop when the day's work is done. This is the land, as is mine, the land of volunteers, where those who received help give it back in abundance to those who haven't, and those who have give to those who have not. Your record for voluntary work and for giving of your money to others who need it exceeds any other in the world. In the last year of publication, you gave $148 billion to charitable causes. That is one of the things which makes you a very great nation. And the fourth cornerstone, if you would call it a cornerstone, is the nation, United States and the United Kingdom, the nation which our forefathers built. How can I describe it? Well, let me tell you, I have a habit, which you probably know of carrying a big handbag. I've left it outside at the moment. It was too big to bring in. It's been very useful because over the years, if I saw or heard a good quotation, I would stuff it in my handbag. So I went to my handbag for inspiration. And I found a really lovely sentences which I could not do better. I don't know whether it's plagiarism, so I'm telling you it was a quotation. America. Otherwise, I'll fall foul of your honors system. How does it describe America? America, as infinite as space, as limitless as the vision and courage of her people. Here the lamp of individual conscience burns bright. We reassert our commitment as a nation to a law higher than our own. My friends, on these four cornerstones, you can build the architecture of your own life. You will become leaders of your community. And leadership is not about following opinion polls, nor about following the crowd. That's what my father taught me. Never follow the crowd. Go your own way, on your own principles. Not like a famous politician of the last century in France, not in the United Kingdom or in the United States, who was watching a crowd outside who'd been listening to a great oration. And he saw some of his own constituents move away from the crowd, doubtless to go somewhere he didn't know where. So Monsieur Alexandre Ledru-Rollin said, "There go my people. I must find out where they are going so that I can lead them." Now, your life and mine have been about convictions, and it's convictions that matter. I am sure that we should hear a lot more about the efforts, success, and willingness to serve of our new graduates of 1997. Congratulations and all good wishes. And don't forget us. Return to the college of your fathers or forefathers and this society. You will always find a welcome.